Hello and welcome to Lesson 1 of Mastering Adobe Lightroom. My name's Julia. I've been a photographer for nearly 10 years and I've been using Lightroom for nearly 8 years. And I really cannot imagine my life without it. It is a great software. In this course, I'm going to teach you all of the ins and outs of Lightroom. I'm going to start by introducing you to the basics of the software. And then, in other tutorials, I'm going to teach you how to import photos, create collections, and use all of the software's wonderful editing tools, such as color correction, white balance correction, lens correction, the adjustment brush, spot removal, radial filter, and graduated filter. I'll also teach you about presets and how to use them, and also, of course, how to export your images to your hard drive or to your online photo sharing service. In this lesson, I'm going to show you the fundamental Lightroom features and functions. I'm going to walk you through the Lightroom layout and go over some of the benefits of using the software. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. First thing first, what is Lightroom exactly? It's a workflow software for photographers. People use the application to organize, edit, and present their photos regardless of the file type. In this video, I'm going to focus on the organization and processing aspects of Lightroom. Once you've imported your photos into Lightroom, it should look something like this. This is your library, and it's where you're going to do most of your non-editing work. You can make some minor color and exposure adjustments in the Quick Develop pane, but nothing compared to what you can do in the Develop tab, which we will get to in a bit. Let's look at the keywords. Adding keyword tags can be really helpful, especially if you have thousands of photos in your image library. For this photo, I entered animals and squirrel as keywords. And Lightroom saves your tags, so if you need to use them again, you can just click what's already listed. In the metadata section, you can manually add information about your photos, and you can also look at the settings with which you shot the photo. And finally, you can add comments to your photos. The reason my library says comments not supported here is because I haven't synced this library with Lightroom Mobile. Yet. So, if you want to use this function, make sure you sync up. Now let's look at how useful keywords can be if you're working from a populated library. I'm going to look for my squirrel. If I type in animals, pictures with other animals show up. If I type in squirrel, the squirrel pictures come up. Now let's move over to the catalog panel on the left-hand side. Your catalog is your entire photo collection. You can view it in its entirety, or you can view only your synced photos or images from your previous import. You can also add photos to your quick collection by pressing the B key when the image is selected. The Folders pane shows you where the images in your Lightroom library are located on your internal or external hard drives. One of the best things about Lightroom is that it's a database, and none of the changes you make to an image with Lightroom will affect the original file. If you imported a group of images to edit from one folder, you can find that folder and work with all of the other images together and export them when you're finished. But if you have loads of folders and clutter on your hard drive, it might be easier for you to just make collections and collection sets. For example, if I were making a collection of photos about animals, I might make a collection set called Animals and then make a collection for each type of animal, as I did here. The Develop tab is located just to the right of the Library tab. This is where you're going to do all of your editing work. The tools are conveniently listed in the order in which users are more likely to use them. Starting with the basic adjustments, you can quickly make necessary changes to the color and lighting settings of your image. If you want to make more dynamic changes to your photo's tone settings, the tone curve is a good tool for that. HSL, color, black and white, and the split toning tool both affect the hues and colors of your images. Then, the detail tool allows you to zoom into part of your image and add or reduce noise. The lens corrections and the transform tab both help you fix distortion caused by your lens. Then, the effects pane is good to use when you're in the final stages of the editing process. And finally, there's camera calibration at the bottom, which is useful for gathering information about your raw files. Now let's move back to the top of the Develop panel and look at the local adjustments. The first tab on the left is the Crop and Straighten tool. The next tool is the Spot tool, which can be used to remove pretty much any unwanted object from your photos. The third tab is the Red Eye tab, and the last three tools are filters. These allow you to make changes to specific areas of your images. The first is the Graduated filter, followed by the Radial filter and the Brush filter. Congratulations! You have now finished the first lesson of the Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. You should now know enough about Lightroom's interface to get started. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will teach you about importing your files to Lightroom. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 2 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In this lesson, we're going to talk about importing your photos to Lightroom. I will show you how to import images to your catalog, and I will also help you understand the different import settings you can use to get the most out of Lightroom. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. In order to use Lightroom at all, you have to import photos to your catalog. Before you can do this, you have to be in the Library module. Click the Import button and Lightroom will open the Import Viewer. Then select your source. Find the folder that contains the files you wish to import by browsing the panel on the left-hand side of the import space. If you want to make Lightroom hide the images that already exist in your library, click the New Photos option located above your thumbnail viewer. If you want to import files that are grouped separately on your hard drive, you can use the option of viewing the subfolder contents of a folder. Once you have found the folder you're looking for, select the images you want to import by ticking their respective boxes. Lightroom will automatically select all of your images, so uncheck any of the photos you want to leave behind. You can highlight all of the images you wish to check or uncheck to get this done faster. If you want to change the order in which your files appear, you can change that at the bottom of the window. You can also make the thumbnails larger so you can see them better. Now let's look at the top of the window. The Copy as DNG option allows you to copy your images and convert them to DNG files in one sweep. If you want to make copies of your images but you don't want to convert them into DNG files, you can use the Copy option. The Move option allows you to move your images to a new location before adding them to your catalog. But if you don't want to change the files' names or locations, selecting the Add option will simply bring your photos to your Lightroom catalog without moving them. Keep in mind that you can only use the Move and Add options if you are importing from a hard drive. If you are importing straight from your camera or memory card, for example, you cannot use these import tools. Now look to the right-hand side of the Copy Move options. Where do you want to copy or move your images to? You can tell Lightroom in this tab. Now let's look at the right-hand pane in more detail. This is where you build previews, and it's also where you control whether or not Lightroom imports duplicated images. You can also send a second copy of the files to a different location, and you can import your photos directly into a new or existing collection. Let's talk about building previews. Since Lightroom is a parametric editor, it doesn't import entire images to your catalog. Instead, it uses previews to help you track the changes you make to your photos. This is why Lightroom is one of the fastest photo processing softwares out there. Minimal previews are the smallest preview type available. They do save a lot of space, but they also lack quite a bit of detail. If you select the Embedded and Sidecar Previews option, Lightroom will use the data from your raw image to build a tentative preview until it builds a better one. This is a good option if you're in a rush to import your photos, but it can slow down the library browsing function fairly significantly. Selecting Standard Preview will make Lightroom build a preview for viewing images in Loop View. Standard views can take a couple of seconds to load, especially if you need to zoom in, but this type of preview will speed up your library workflow. One-to-one previews take the longest to load because they are the highest quality preview type. Unlike the standard previews, one-to-one previews are full-sized and allow you to zoom in. But it's a bit of a catch-22 because they take up more space than the other previews do. Luckily, Lightroom discards these previews after 30 days, and you can change that deadline in your file handling settings. After you've selected the right preview type, you can make Lightroom build additional smart previews. These are a Creative Cloud feature used to synchronize your desktop library with Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web. Smart previews are smaller in size than the other options because they have to be compressed in order to maintain their high quality. Below the File Handling pane is the File Renaming pane. This is available if you're copying or moving images to a different location on your hard drive. This is one of Lightroom's very convenient organization features. The Apply During Import pane is for applying presets to the images before you work with them. You can use Lightroom's developing presets, and you can also assign metadata presets and keywords. If you're copying or moving your images during your import, you can select their destination in the Destination pane. Once you've selected all of your images and you're ready to import, all you have to do is press the Import button and Lightroom will bring them all over to your catalog for you. Once you've returned to your library module, you can view all of the photos you just imported by selecting the previous import collection in your catalog pane. Congratulations! You should now feel comfortable importing your photos into Lightroom. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will teach you about making collections. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 3 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about collections. We'll go over their benefits and then I'll show you how to make them. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. Collections are an organization feature of Lightroom that allow you to create groups of images that you need to work with. You can access your collections across all of your modules, and they really save a lot of time that would otherwise be spent moving back and forth between the Library and Develop tabs in search of images to work with. You can use quick collections in your catalog pane, and you can also make your own collections and collection sets in the Collections box. Look at my collections. The reason some of them are listed in a hierarchy is because I am using a collection set. I have animals, and then under there 2 collections, cat and squirrel. Here, animals is a collection set, and cat and squirrel are collections that belong to the animals set. But this isn't how I typically group my photos. Usually I group them based on where and when I took them, or I'll make a collection for the client I'm working for. Let's make a collection set and collections for my recent trip to Valencia, Spain, where I took 2 collections worth of photos using certain settings just to show you how brilliant Lightroom is. First, I'm going to make a collection set called Valencia. To do this, I click the plus icon at the top of the Collections pane and select Create Collection Set. I'm going to give it a title, and since I don't want this collection set to belong to another collection set, I'm going to uncheck that option. Then I'm going to go back to my library and select the images that I took on day 1 of my trip. If I notice that I've missed a photo later, I can just drag it into the collection. Now I'm going to click the plus icon again, but this time I'm going to create a collection. I'm going to call this collection Day 1, and I'm going to put it inside of the Valencia collection set. Then I've got a few other additional options. I do want to include the photos I've already selected, so I'm going to check this box. You can also keep the images in your collection separate from the rest of the library by ticking Make New Virtual Copies. That way, the changes that you make to the images in your collection won't change the image in your library. If you check Set as Target Collection, you will be able to move images into the collection by tapping your B key, which is marginally easier than manually dragging the thumbnails into the collection. I'm not interested in the last 2 options, so I'm going to leave them unchecked. Now I have Day 1 in my Valencia collection, and I can do the same process for Day 2. This time, let's make the collection via the Quick Collection option. The Quick Collection is a pretty useful tool. It's basically just a temporary collection. You can add photos to it by pressing the B key while you navigate your library, unless, of course, you've already assigned your B key to a different group. When you're finished adding photos to your Quick Collection, you can turn it into a real collection and, in doing so, reopen your Quick Collection to a new batch of images. I'm going to select the photos and then touch my B key. Then I'm going to turn it into a collection by right-clicking the Quick Collections panel and then pressing Save Quick Collection. I'll call it Day 2. Since it doesn't automatically fall under the Valencia set, I'm going to drag it in there. Now that these 2 collections are ready, all of the images can be found inside of the collection set that contains both of the folders. As you can see, you can also make something called a smart collection. This type of collection enables you to group your photos based on their metadata attributes. There are already several pre-existing smart collections, and you can create more of them. For example, you could group together all of the images that have been cropped, or you can make a collection of images that all share the same keyword. One big difference between smart collections and regular ones is that you cannot create a custom order of your images in smart collections. Using regular collections, you can drag your photos around to reorder them, but smart collections make you arrange your photos according to Lightroom's default settings. You can also arrange your actual collections alphabetically, but you can also sort them by their type. When your collections pane starts growing, you'll probably have a harder time finding the collection you want to work with. Luckily, Lightroom provides you with the ability to search for your collections using the Collections Filter function. If you want to delete a collection, just press the minus sign at the top of the pane. Congratulations! You should now be able to make collections, collection sets, and smart collections. In the next tutorial, we're going to enter the Develop module, where I will teach you about changing the white balance of your images. If you have any questions about the tutorial we just completed, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as we can. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 4 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about Lightroom's white balance settings, and I will show you how to use them to correct the white balance of your images. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. White balance is crucial for an aesthetically pleasing image or collection of images. If you're working on a collection of photos that were taken at different times of the day under different weather conditions, your white balances will determine whether your collection is cohesive or not. You can spend loads of time adjusting the white balance on your camera before you take a picture, but there's no guarantee that the image will turn out perfectly. Luckily, Lightroom can fix this for you, but in order to take full advantage of Lightroom's white balance feature, you really need to shoot in RAW. My biggest regret as a photographer is failing to shoot in RAW soon enough. I thought RAW files were a waste of space, and I was so wrong. Now, in my opinion, if you don't shoot in RAW, then there's really no point in even owning Lightroom. Shooting in RAW is definitely worth the lost disk space. Now let's play with our white balance correction tool. The white balance tool is located in the Develop module of Lightroom. It's the first tool listed in your Basic Adjustments pane. You can use it for working with both color and black and white pictures. We will now go over the different white balance tools from left to right. The first tool is the White Balance Selector tool. Click on the selector and bring it to your image. Alternatively, you can just touch the W key and move your cursor around the picture. The box that pops up near your cursor is an RGB readout. It shows you the colors that are present in that area of the image. To treat your white balance with the selector tool, find an area of your image that should be white. In this picture, the whitest area is probably on the marble ground, which looks pretty blue just like the rest of the image. Let's look at the 8 presets you have to choose from. The As Shot preset will revert your image's white balance back to the original setting. If you select this option before you start editing the white balance, nothing will happen. But it's a good way to reset all of the changes you've made if you end up disliking them. Select Auto if you want Lightroom to determine the white balance for you. The Daylight preset will increase greens and blues. This is because photos taken in bright sunlight tend to pick up a yellowish pink tint. Blue is the opposite of yellow, and green is the opposite of pink. Your image needs these spectrums to be balanced. The Cloudy preset will balance out the gray tints in your image to make it appear more yellow. Shade will make your images appear more yellow and pink. Tungsten will increase the blues. Fluorescent will increase blues and pinks, and it's useful if the image takes place under fluorescent light, obviously. The Flash preset will cancel out low light from a flash. My favorite option, however, is the Custom option. You don't have to select it as a preset in order to use the temp and tint sliders, but you can select a different preset first and work from there. Anyway, there are 2 sliders. The temp slider has blue on one side and yellow on the other, and the tint slider has green on one side and pink on the other. If your image is too blue, move the slider towards the yellow side. If the image is too purple, you can move the temp slider towards yellow and the tint slider towards green until you find the right balance. You can also use the filter tools to change the white balance of a specific part of an image. Just select the filter you want to use and adjust the sliders to the temperature or tint you need. And again, I can't emphasize enough, shoot in RAW. Congratulations! You've now completed the 4th tutorial of the Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. You should now have a basic understanding of Lightroom's white balance options. If you have any questions about this lesson, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as we can. In the next video, we're going to learn even more about correcting the colors of your photos. We will go over the HSL Color Black and White tool, and we will also talk about the corrections you can make using the Split Toning tool. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 5 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to correct your white balance in Lightroom. In this lesson, I will teach you about the HSL Color Black and White tool, and I'll talk about the Split Toning tool as well. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. Good news! You already know a lot about correcting the color of your images because you've already learned about white balance correction. But sometimes changing the white balance of a photo isn't enough to make the colors of your image look right. Maybe you want to make certain colors stand out from others, or maybe you want to make your colors look more surreal. If that's the case, head down to the HSL Color Black and White tool. HSL stands for Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. Those are the settings you'll be changing using this tool. The beauty of the HSL function is that it enables you to control the hue, saturation, and brightness of specific colors. This tool is also a great one to use for making your black and white images more dynamic, but in this tutorial, we're going to focus on working with color photography. First, let's look at the hue sliders. There are 8 of them. These tools replace specific colors, such as green, with adjacent colors in the spectrum, such as yellow and blue. Using this setting, you can tweak the color of the sky or the grass or whatever to make it either more accurate or more ethereal. Using the saturation tool, you can increase or decrease the intensity of a specific color. For example, if one particular color is especially vivid and distracting, it might help to reduce its saturation. Playing with the hue settings can also help you do this. The luminance tool lets you increase or decrease the brightness of specific colors. This is a great way to add a bit of extra contrast to your images. If you prefer, you can also view the hue, saturation, and luminance slides in one pane by selecting the All tab. There is another setting under the HSL tab that can be hard to spot. Do you see this little circle? It's present in all of the HSL tabs. It's the HSL Target Adjustment tool. This tool enables you to perform the changes we just discussed without using the sliders. Instead, you click on the exact location of the color you want to tweak in your image and drag your cursor. This tool can be used for all of the HSL settings we've just discussed respectively. The tools under the Color tab are pretty much the same as the HSL tab, but there is no Target Adjustment tool. You can view all of the colors and their settings in one tab, or you can click on the right color's thumbnail at the top of the pane to focus on that one. Now that we've gone over all of the HSL tools, let's talk about split toning for a bit. These settings are in the pane below the HSL pane. This tool allows you to change the colors of the shadows and highlights of an image. If you want to change the hue of your picture's highlights, you have a few options. The best way to start is by moving the saturation slider so you can get a better view of the colors you're working with. If you want to change the hues of your shadows, you can either move the slider until you find the right one, or you can click on the thumbnail here and choose a specific color from the spectrum. Then you can balance the two colors using the Balance slider. Congratulations! You should now be able to make advanced adjustments to your color settings. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as we can. In the next tutorial, I will teach you about the Lens Corrections tool. You'll learn a little bit more about color corrections, and you'll also learn about fixing basic lens distortion issues. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello, and welcome to Lesson 6 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you about correcting your colors in Lightroom. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about the Lens Corrections tool. I'm going to show you how to use Lightroom's automatic profile corrections and the manual lens corrections option. I will also give you a brief overview of how to perform more extensive distortion corrections using the Transform tool. This lesson is brought to you by Creative Online School. Most lenses add distortion to images. Each lens is built with a different profile that makes it interpret data differently from the next lens. Because lenses are turning a very dynamic setting into a flat image, they can sometimes stretch the image and, in doing so, cause distortion. Sometimes, distortion takes form of a vignette or darkened, shadowy corners. Another form of distortion is chromatic aberration. This happens when your lens is unable to focus all of the image's colors to the same convergence point. Chromatic aberration adds weird color fringes to edges that separate light and dark colors. These fringes tend to have a green, pink, or purple hue. Lens Corrections is a Lightroom tool that helps you fix aesthetic issues caused by your lens. This little tool can help you cure problems such as chromatic aberration, vignetting, and perspective distortion. Let's try it out. I want to work with this photo because some of the building lines are a bit wonky. Choose the photo you want to work with and head for the Develop module. It's a good idea to make sure you've applied any necessary cropping and straightening to your photo before starting on your lens corrections. That way, you'll avoid some confusion later on when you're editing the structure of your photo. Scroll down to the Lens Corrections pane. It's located underneath the Detail tab. You can correct lens distortions automatically by selecting the Profile tab on the left-hand side, or you can do it yourself in the Manual tab on the right-hand side. Let's start with the Profile corrections. To get Lightroom to do your lens corrections for you, check Enable Profile Corrections. If you're happy with the results, then you don't really need to do much else. But if you think that Lightroom has gone a little overboard or has not done enough, you can further tweak the perspective distortion and vignettes using the sliders below the lens profile lists. I'm pretty happy with the changes Lightroom made to my image, and my lens didn't really make a vignette, so I can leave that be. A few moments ago, I mentioned chromatic aberration. In this photo, the tower's balustrade does have some weird color fringes around the edges. Let's go in and get a closer look. Do you see those color speckles? When I check the Remove Chromatic Aberration box, they go away, and in turn, that part of the image is sharpened. Now let's look at the Manual tab. Use the top slider to correct any perspective distortion. Checking the Constrain Crop option will prevent Lightroom from creating a white background on your image. You can then change the chromatic aberration settings using the next set of sliders. My color fringe is pink, so I'm going to make it more blue. You can also use the Color Fringe Selector tool instead of the sliders. Just click on the eyedropper icon above the chromatic aberration sliders and click on the fringes you need to correct in your image. Lightroom will do the work for you. And if your image needs even more distortion correction, just head down to the Transform pane just below Lens Corrections. In this pane, you can make changes to specific types of distortion manually and automatically. You can change the vertical distortion, the horizontal distortion. You can rotate your image. You can change the aspect, the scale, the X offset, and the Y offset. Congratulations! You should now feel comfortable fixing distortion using Lightroom's lens corrections and transform tools. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next lesson, I'm going to teach you how to remove unwanted objects from your photos using the Spot Healer. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 7 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to correct color and profile distortion using Lightroom. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to remove objects from your photos using the Spot Healer tool. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. So, you've taken a photo and used Lightroom to edit its color and profile settings. Your image is almost perfect, but there is still one little pesky object that takes away from the rest of the image. The spot removal tool is a very effective way to get rid of unwanted objects in your photos. You can really get rid of anything, whether it's a pimple on someone's face, or a distracting object such as a person in a landscape shot, or the white dog lurking behind the park bench in this photo. To get to the spot removal tool, you can either click it in your Develop module, or you can press the Q key. Once you're there, it should look something like this. You have the choice of using the Clone or the Heal tool. Both of these tools are brushes. You just need to draw over the areas that you want to remove. In this case, I'm going to scribble over the white dog behind the bench. I'm going to start by zooming in so that I can get a more detailed view. Scribble over the problem area of your photo to create your selected area. Once you've done that, Lightroom will clone the shape of your selected area. This new shape is your sample area, or the area from which Lightroom will extract the appropriate information to hide or cover up your selected area. I used the Clone tool, so Lightroom extracted information about the sample area's colors and textures to match with my selected area. When I use the Heal tool, Lightroom duplicates the sample area and essentially pastes it onto the selected area. You can also move the sample area around if need be. The Spot Healer is a very useful tool, and it is generally very effective. However, it's not quite perfect, so painting over an object in one stroke won't always get you the results you're looking for. Thankfully, Lightroom allows us to change the size, feather, and opacity of our brush. The size slider is the first slider in the spot healer pane. Move it to the right to make your brush larger and move it to the left to decrease its size. You can also scroll up and down with your mouse to make your brush larger or smaller respectively. The feather slider is the next one down. If you want to make the edge of your selected area more graduated and less stark, increase your feather size by moving the slider to the right. If you want the edge to stay stark, keep your slider tab to the left-hand side. If you want to just obscure an image and you don't want to completely remove it, you can increase the transparency of your brush by moving the opacity slider to the left-hand side. I find that I achieve the most accuracy with this tool when I paint small areas at a time. Congratulations! You should now be able to use Lightroom's Spot Healer tool to remove unwanted objects from your photos. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will teach you how to use the graduated filter to correct and enhance your images. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 8 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to use Lightroom's Spot Healer tool. In this lesson, I will teach you about the graduated filter. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. You've completed all of your exposure, color, and profile corrections, but there are still some noticeable inconsistencies in your image. For example, the foreground of this photo is quite shadowy compared to the background. The horizon is very bright, and I couldn't accurately adjust the white balance in my basic settings. When I did, the buildings in the foreground turned very blue. If I didn't own Lightroom, I would have to prevent this issue by shooting with a physical filter over my lens. But, thanks to Lightroom's graduated filter, I don't have to spend money on a lens filter, and I don't have to think about changing the filter each time I take a new photo of a different setting or subject. The graduated filter is a tool that helps you adjust the exposure settings of one side of your photo, and you can do it gradually so that it looks natural. It's very useful because cameras cannot detect light as well as the human eye can, so it's only natural for there to be some level of unevenness in a photo with two differently lit subjects. You can also use it creatively to add cool, natural-looking effects to part of your photo. To use it, click on its icon in the Develop module. It's located just below the histogram and above your basic adjustments. Otherwise, you can just touch your M key, as in Mary. Once you've done this, you'll be able to choose from a long list of filters that are split into two sections. The filters in the top section are more specific and relate to the sliders below the list. The second part of the list is made up of presets. Some of them, such as Iris Enhance, are default Lightroom filter presets, and others are presets that I saved after making custom graduated filters. When you select a filter from the list, Lightroom will move its correlating slider to a certain point. For example, if you select Shadows, Lightroom will assume you want to lighten your shadows. If something similar happens to you, just move the slider to where you need it to be. And you can always move your sliders around after you've dragged the graduated filter into place as long as you select its pin first. Once you've selected your filter, bring your mouse over to your image, click, and drag the filter over the area to which you want to apply your new settings. You can create more filters by repeating this process. If you keep the spaces wide between the filter's three lines, there will be a smoother graduation between the filtered and non-filtered parts of the image. And, of course, if the lines are smaller, the effect will be more intense. Selecting the Show Selected Mask Overlay box at the bottom of the workspace can help you get a clearer visual of where your filter settings are being applied, because Lightroom overlays the filter with a bright color, such as red. You can delete your filters by selecting their pins and then touching your Delete button. Also, the pins can sometimes get in the way. You can toggle the pin settings on the bottom left-hand corner of your workspace next to the Mask Overlay box. Congratulations! You should now feel comfortable using the graduated filter tool in Lightroom. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will teach you how to use the radial filter. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello, and welcome to Lesson 9 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to use Lightroom's graduated filter tool. In this lesson, I will teach you about the very similar radial filter. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. The radial filter tool allows you to make certain parts of your image stand out from the rest. You can think of it as a very customized vignette that isn't limited to just black or white corners. The radial filter is very similar to the graduated filter, except the mask is oval-shaped and you can apply filters to either the inside or the outside of the circle. Let's try it out. I want to make the subject of this image stand out from the rest, and I would also like to make the color scheme more vibrant and variegated. The radial filter is located in between the graduated filter and the adjustment brush. You can click on its icon, or you can touch your Shift and M as in Mary key at the same time. We can select an effect from the list, or we can make a custom one. I'm going to play with the custom sliders. First, I'm going to draw a circle over the subject and drag it to where I want it to be using the center pin. As you can see, the subject just turned yellow. That's because the radial filter is currently inverted. I'm going to uncheck that option because I want to apply the changes to the outside of the circle. You can rotate your circle by dragging its edges, and you can change its size by dragging one of the edge pins. You can soften the transitional space between the outside of the circle and the inside by increasing the feather size. If we decrease the size of the feather, fewer changes will make it into the center of the circle. You can also make more changes to your filter settings even after you've drawn the circle by moving the sliders. Just make sure you've selected the pin in the center of the circle first. Now that that's done, the image looks a bit more dynamic, but I'm going to make it even more so by using the radial filter to mimic the presence of sunlight. This time, I'm working with an inverted ellipsis. If you want the filter to keep its aspect ratio, press Shift while you drag the handle. If you want to reset your radial filter settings, just click Reset and all of the filters will be removed. Congratulations! You should now feel comfortable using the radial filter in Lightroom. It's a very useful tool and it's easy to experiment with since you can reset all of your settings so easily. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, we will learn about the adjustment brush. I will show you what it's good for and how to use it. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 10 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to use the radial filter to enhance your subjects in Lightroom. In this lesson, I will teach you how to use the adjustment brush. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. The adjustment brush is the most local and most targeted filter tool that Lightroom has to offer. You can use the adjustment brush to make part of your image stand out from the rest, or you can use it to make corrections to a specific part of your image. I often use it to enhance eyes, whiten teeth, or bring out certain colors while dulling out others. I'm going to make some adjustments to this photo using the adjustment brush. I'm going to use it to correct the color of this cat's coat. When I edited this picture using the Basic Adjustments tool, my new white balance made the cat reflect a rather pinkish tint. I'm going to fix this and enhance the cat's coat as well without disturbing the rest of the image's color scheme. The adjustment brush is located on the far right-hand side of your Develop module, above your Basic Adjustments pane and just to the right of the radial filter. Alternatively, you can just press your K key and Lightroom will open the adjustment brush for you. As with the graduated and radial filters, you can choose from several of the effects Lightroom lists by default, or you can make your own custom effect. That's what I'm going to do because there is not one single effect that will fix this picture for me on its own. You can also select a preset and just tweak that one. I'm going to start with tweaking the tint. Before we start to paint, let's look at the other options. Below all of the sliders, there are 3 different brushes to choose from. The A and the B brush are both customizable in terms of size, feather, flow, and density. You can make your brushes larger or smaller by using the size slider, or you can also scroll up and down with your mouse to increase or decrease its size respectively. Increasing your feather size will smoothen the transition between the edge of your brush and the surrounding area. It basically evens out the pixels between the edge of the adjustment brush and the pixels that you're not editing. The flow refers to the speed of your brush's application. If you use a high flow, your adjustments will be painted onto your image immediately. If you stroke with a low flow, the changes will be applied slowly. My A brush has the auto mask checked. That means that I'm giving Lightroom the responsibility of edge detection. That way, I won't have to worry about applying my changes to other objects that share edges with the subject I'm working with. This is only useful if there is a large contrast or visible difference between the objects, because Lightroom has to be able to detect the edges. The density slider adjusts the opacity of your adjustment brush. There is only one erase brush, and you can't change its density, but you can adjust the size, feather, and flow of its brush and strokes. Now it's time to paint. As you can see, the cat is turning red. That's not because I'm painting him red, it's because I've selected the Show Selected Mask overlay box at the bottom of the workspace. It's a really good tool to use for getting a better idea of where you're actually painting because sometimes the changes can be hard to see. But I don't want to apply these settings to the green background. That's where the auto mask comes in handy. I can pretty much just paint over my cat without worrying about the edges. However, the auto mask sometimes does detect borders in places where there aren't any, so it's a good idea to go back and repaint areas like this. I still try to be careful when I paint over the edges when I use the auto mask because it can make mistakes. Now, let's go in with the B brush and repaint the areas that the auto mask missed. When I'm finished, I can uncheck the Show Selected Mask overlay box to see the changes I've made. Congratulations! You should now feel confident using Lightroom's adjustment brush. I love this tool and I hope that you enjoy exploring it too. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to export your photos, and I will teach you how to do so both with a watermark and without one. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 11 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to use Lightroom's adjustment brush. In this lesson, I will teach you how to export your photos, with and without a watermark. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. By now, you've imported your images, made collections, and you've perfected your photos using loads of Lightroom tools and filters. Now what? Now, you need to export your images so that they can be enjoyed in the world beyond your Lightroom catalog. First, select the image or images you wish to export and right-click it or them. Alternatively, if you're in your library module, you can head to the bottom left-hand corner of your workspace and click the Export button. Don't be intimidated by Lightroom's robust export window. Although it shows you a seemingly endless list of settings and options, exporting your images can be as simple as pressing your Enter button twice. Once you're in the export window, you have several options. You can export your images to your hard drive, email, or even a CD or DVD if you still use them. I'm going to export mine to my hard drive. And there are also several preset lists in the left-hand side panel. By default, Lightroom gives you the option to burn your images as full-size JPEG or DNG files. You can also export them directly into emails, and you can also add your own presets. I'm just going to export mine as simple JPEG files to my external hard drive. I exported my images to the same hard drive the last time I used Lightroom, so I don't need to choose the destination again. I will, however, create a subfolder, and even though not all of these photos are from Valencia, I'm just going to call it Valencia. If one of the file names that you're exporting already exists in the same destination folder, you can get Lightroom to automatically choose a new name, overwrite the existing file, or you can skip exporting that file completely. As a default, Lightroom asks you what you would like to do should that situation arise, and I like that setting, so I'd like to just keep it. You can also rename your files, and you can change their format, color space, quality, and you can limit your file sizes, and that can be very useful, especially if there is a file size limit on something that you need to upload. Let's look more at image sizing. You can resize your images to fit certain dimensions. You can also tell Lightroom not to enlarge your images, and you can give specific dimensions and units. If you are going to print your images, you can sharpen your output so that they will look good on the paper you print them on. You can keep all of your metadata, or you can just keep certain information. You can also get Lightroom to hold on to your keywords or discard them. Let's look at watermarking. Lightroom makes it very easy to create and upload watermarks to add as an overlay to your image. Click Edit Watermarks and Lightroom will open a new window for creating and perfecting your watermark. If you want your watermark to be a text logo, all you have to do is select Text as your watermark style at the top right-hand side of the window, and then type the text you wish to use below the image on the left-hand side. You have many fonts to choose from, and you can adjust the style, alignment, and color, and you can also make a custom shadow. If you want to use an image as your watermark, select Graphic as your watermark style. Then, upload the image you wish to use and head down to the Watermark Effects pane. Make sure you upload a JPEG or a PNG file, otherwise Lightroom won't be able to use it. You can adjust the opacity, size, scale, and horizontal and vertical insets of your text and graphic watermarks in the Watermark Effects pane. You can also assign your watermark with anchors, and you can rotate it. When you're finished, your logo will be saved so that you can apply it again next time if need be. Press Enter and you'll be brought back to the export window. And, of course, if you don't want to add a watermark to your image, you can leave this box unchecked. And finally, do you want to work with your images using another software once you're finished exporting them? If so, this is the place to tell Lightroom you would like to open your file with that software when the export is complete. Lightroom will send your image over for you to finish working on it. You can also get Lightroom to show the exported file in its new location once the export is complete, but you don't have to do anything in this section, only if you need to. Once you're finished going through all of your options, simply hit Export and all of your images will be sent away to their new destination. The copies you've been working on in your Lightroom catalog will stay where they are, so if you need to make more changes or export them again, that shouldn't be a problem. Congratulations! You now know how to export your files from Lightroom when you're finished editing them. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. In the next tutorial, I will teach you about presets, what they are, and how to use them. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School. Hello and welcome to Lesson 12 of the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. In the last tutorial, I taught you how to export your photos with and without a watermark. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about Lightroom presets. By the end of this video, you should have a firm understanding of what Lightroom presets are and how to use them. This tutorial is brought to you by Creative Online School. What are presets? Presets are files that apply specific settings to an image or images. The concept is comparable to filters people use in photo sharing apps such as Instagram, though, needless to say, Lightroom's preset panel is much more robust than a simple mobile app's. Your presets have their own panel on the left-hand side of the Develop module, and you can also access them from the Quick Develop panel of your library. As with most settings, Lightroom provides default presets, but you can also create your own and upload them. The presets are organized by their effect, and they can be pretty specific. To make your own preset, make your desired changes to your first image. When you're finished, click the plus icon in the top right-hand corner of the Preset tab. Choose a name for your preset and, if you want to group it into a category with other similar presets, choose its folder in the drop-down list. Then, select the changes you want to save. And be careful. Let's say you've just edited an image and you want to turn your changes into a preset. If you save all of the settings, the preset will only work if you apply it to similar images to the one with which you created your preset. Of course, this can be a huge time saver if your photos do tend to have similar exposure, white balance, and profile settings. But if you're traveling, for example, and your images range between the outdoors, indoors, architecture, portraits, and so on, saving and applying all of an image's settings probably won't work. The same goes for if you want to use the preset for creative purposes rather than mass image correction. If your images fall into this category, just save the settings that actually create the effect, such as tint or color settings, you want to save as a preset. This will also prevent Lightroom from overwriting those settings if you make changes before applying the preset. You can save your presets to your hard drive and share them with other Lightroom users by right-clicking the given preset and selecting Export, which is placed one up from the bottom above the Import option in the pop-up list. You don't have to make your own presets. You can also download them from the internet. To import an existing preset, right-click a folder in the preset pane and select Import. Compatible files will have the extension .lr template. Then all you have to do is find the correct file and Lightroom will bring it over for you. If you need to access your presets, you can do so in your Lightroom Preferences under the Presets tab. Click Show Lightroom Presets folder and open the subfolder. This is where all of your different presets are located. To access your developed presets, select that folder. When you want to apply a preset to an image, you can do so by clicking on the preset while your image is selected. If you're not sure which preset you want to apply to your photo, hover over individual presets with your mouse to see a preview in your navigation thumbnail. Congratulations! You've now completed the Creative Online School's Mastering Adobe Lightroom course. You should now be able to navigate the Lightroom library and develop modules. You can make collections and collection sets and correct the white balance, color, and lens profile settings using Lightroom. You should also feel comfortable using the Spot Healer tool as well as the 3 Lightroom filter tools, the graduated filter, the radial filter, and the adjustment brush. In this lesson, you learned about Lightroom presets and how to use them. If you have any questions about this lesson, please leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Now, go have fun exploring Lightroom. This course is brought to you by Creative Online School.